I've decided to make a few short videos on the Bounty Hunter / Radio Shack Discovery 3300 metal detector. There's not a lot of stuff out there on this. There's some non-English speaking videos on YouTube and hardly anything for us English speakers. So I'm just going to kind of go over some of the features. I've used the detector for probably a year and a half now, so I'm fairly familiar with it. But everything I say may not be the gospel on it. It's just stuff I've done and used the time I've had it. So I'll start by turning it on. When the unit comes up, it defaults to all metal mode, and it has a default sensitivity setting that comes up every time you turn it on. You can turn sensitivity up and down just by using the sensitivity button. I haven't really had any problems with the default sensitivity. I found coins and stuff down to 6-7 inches pretty easy at the default setting. But then again, I haven't really had any issues turning the sensitivity up when I needed to. I'm in Illinois, so our ground here is it's fairly good. Not a lot of mineralization, so we don't have a lot of issues with that. I usually run in the all metal mode and just use the tone ID to kind of pick out signals, and then I can look at the VDI to see what it is, and it's usually pretty accurate. I've got a kind of host of targets over here, stuff that I've dug over time, and just some other odds and ends. You see down here miscellaneous stuff, some rings and silver coins, nails, foil, bottle caps, pull tabs, that kind of stuff. And I'll try to ring some of that over the detector just to kind of show you, what it picks up. So I'll start with some of the trash, so you can see what it brings up. And the first thing I'll pull up here is the old style beaver tail tab. And as you can see, it comes up as a pull tab. Right there is PT. It may be kind of hard to see in the video, maybe a little bit small, but definitely recognizes it. Next, I'll ring up a newer style pull tab. And normally these type of pull tabs come up as like a screw cap. Sometimes they vary a little bit, but that's generally where they fall on it. I've got a like a steel bottle cap, probably a little bit older one. It's a little bit heavier than what I've seen around usually, but and as you can see, those kind of pop around a little bit, but generally they show up as a screw cap. About 53 in the 50s, usually between high 40s and low to mid 50s is what they'll usually come up as. I've got the Arch Nemesis foil. That particular piece is showing up as a pull tab, so around 45, 40, 45. I also have an iron roofing nail. And that one's pretty obvious that it's iron. Larger nails, larger iron objects, they'll drop a little bit further down the iron scale. That nail will ring up as iron 3. But bigger chunks of metal, they're going to show lower on the scale. The only odd things I've noticed with iron is that sometimes if you have a really large piece of iron that's pretty deep, it will ring up as like almost peeking out the scale. So a good thing to do at that point in time is to kick it in a pinpoint mode and see how big the target is, and you can kind of determine whether you want a chance digging it based off of that. Next, I got a gold ring here. It's a pretty good size gold ring. It should ring up around the screw cap. It comes up as screw cap. So it's kind of hard to tell. With most detectors, it's kind of hard to tell gold from screw caps, pull tabs. So if you're looking for gold, you're going to dig a lot of trash, just like everything. But that's generally what gold comes up as. I've got a class ring here that I found actually just the other day, and it's a stainless steel band. And this was in a hole with a bunch of clad dimes, some nickels, pennies, miscellaneous, kind of spread out over about 8 to 10 inches. And detector was bouncing kind of a little bit everywhere with it because it was hitting all the different targets. I almost left it, but decided to go ahead and dig it, and I came up with this, and then just some pocket change and stuff. And again, that's a stainless steel ring, so it comes up as a nickel, 24 in VDI. So I've got some clad change here. This is a clad quarter. And as you can see, it comes up as a 25 cents. Usually quarters are going to ring up between 115 and probably 125, 130. Depends on how it's in the ground, how it's corroded. Next, I've got a silver quarter. That's a 1950. And the silver rings up a little bit higher usually. It'll usually ring up as between a quarter and a 50-cent piece, if you've got a full silver quarter. I've got a mercury dime here. And it generally will show up between 10 cent and 25 cent on the meter, but it's definitely higher than a normal dime. I've probably got a clad dime in here someplace. Yeah, here's an old corroded clad dime. You notice it comes up, shows up as a dime, but a little bit lower than silver. I've got a Franklin here, silver. And really that's about, as far as stuff that I have seen that has been legitimate target to dig, that's probably about as high as I've seen on the scale, from about mid 140s to 150, 155. Usually, if it's much higher than that, it's a pretty corroded piece of iron that's in the ground. But that's about, like I said, about the highest I've seen. I do have a war nickel here. I believe they're like 45% silver, if I remember correct. And it shows up as a 5-cent piece. Let me see if I've got a clad nickel. Yeah, here's one, pretty corroded one. So. And as you can see, there's a little bit of difference between standard clad nickel and a war nickel, but not a whole lot. There may just be a few points in the VDI reading, but it's not something you're going to notice when you're out hunting. You're not going to know for sure if it's a war nickel or standard clad nickel. But I've got a couple pennies. This is a pretty corroded zinc penny. I mean, it's been in the ground for a while. Actually, found that in the same hole as that stainless class ring that I dug the other day. And it comes up as 61, shows up as a zinc penny. And then this, I believe, is this is a copper penny. And it shows up as copper, 10 cent. They got them under the same scale on the scale there. So. But that's usually how I run all metal mode, and I can show you some information on discrimination, how discrimination works, and the notching and zap. I'll go ahead and stop this part of the video and go ahead and restart it so I can kind of have some manageable file sizes here. So.